am a normal Albanian, like any other. I am born in a highland village, not very far from Tirana, 30 kilometers from here, but very isolated because of the configuration of Albania. I had the elementary schooling in my native village for 4 years. Then my parents sent me here to Tirana to continue the schooling. I stayed here for 3 years, and then I was sent to another city to become a teacher. I finished my high school and was laureated as a teacher. I never worked as a teacher because I was selected by the authorities to go for university studies in Russia, Moscow. I went there in 1959 and stayed up to 1961, only for 2 years, instead of 6 years as it was planned, because our relations between Albania and the Soviet Union at the time broke out, and we were sent home. I continued here for 3 more years, my studies in the law faculty of Tirana, and I graduated as a lawyer, as a jurist. But I never worked as a lawyer because I was nominated and sent to work in the field of diplomacy. Because in Moscow I studied international relations. That means I was prepared for the Foreign Office of Albania. I worked in the Foreign Office of Albania for 12 years. And I had the occasion to go in different missions, diplomatic missions. And then from 77 to the end of 82, for almost 6 years, I represented Albania as a permanent representative to the United Nations. So I am a peasant guy by my origin. I represented, in a sense, the way the Albanian nations developed from a mountainous village, a small child, a young guy comes to schooling, went to study abroad, and then I finished representing Albania to the United Nations when I was 35 years of age. Well, the government decided, not I. I was pleased with that, of course, to go to Moscow for study, and I'm not sorry for that. I studied there, but I am not a Russian nostalgic. And I never visited again Russia. In Russia, yes, we lived with the Russians. We were 4 students in the same room. We shared the same room. 3 Russians and a foreigner. And I was with 3 Russian students there. I have good memories from them. I have good memories from Russia, but I cannot accept any political movement of Russia. When we were back, we were allowed to choose another branch of study. But I decided to go to the Faculty of Law because it was closer to the matters of international relations. And I finished it in 1964. And since that time, I work at the Foreign Office, and from the Foreign Office to... So I changed many working places, and I profited from that because it's boring, stay all the time in the same function, in the same place, changing sometimes. The orientation is good for anyone. I was in contact with the UN much earlier, since 1970, because I was member of the Albanian delegation for the general sessions, for ordinary sessions. I participated in many sessions, special sessions, ordinary sessions, and before being nominated, be appointed as a permanent representative. United Nations is a unique experience. And of course, I must admit that it was a wonderful experience for me for later work. I was in a very particular position at the United Nations. Albania at that time was fiercely communist. So I had to represent a communist regime, of course. But it depends how you represent. Are you a fanatic, or do you do the job, and you do the job to the same limit you establish yourself? I profited from that, profited from the liberty there. I represented Albania as it was, a communist country, with, out of any regional group, a particular position of Albania. At that time, Albania was very much engaged involved in defending the right of China to occupy its lawful seat at the UN, which was held by Taiwan. And I can tell you that I have interesting memories from that time. Please. We wrote the speeches. We made propaganda for China. We were very good contacts with the Chinese representatives. And finally, we had the satisfaction that China was admitted to the UN in 1981. I remember when the permanent representative of United States, who was the president after he became the president of the United States, George Bush Sr., was not very pleased with the voting in the assembly. And it was the insistence of Albanian delegations that the voting took place a year earlier than planned. Not because of only Albania. Albania worked together with other countries, especially with Algeria. At that time, Algeria had a prestige among the third world countries. So they were not, even the Chinese were not very satisfied, because at that time they were in contact with the Americans to put in order a relationship. Since 1970, United States started a strategy to divide a little bit China from the Soviet Union. Now they are starting to they work to divide Russia from China, and we have the war in Ukraine. In the United Nations, I was free to represent as I thought fit the Albanian position. The government gave the instruction once a year, and you know the job, okay, go on. Another interesting thing that you should know as Turkish citizens, one of the reasons why I was dismissed from my job at the UN was the position I took about Cyprus. Cyprus was divided in 1974. In the UN, they passed a resolution the resolution was satisfactory for both sides, Turkey and Greece. Okay, Albania had nothing against. Later on, this resolution was transformed in the following years. It was more anti-Turkish than neutral. And finally, in 1976, a time came where a resolution was very, very tough against Turkey. For us, it was difficult to vote for. I proposed to my government a change of position, to be neutral, not to participate in the voting. They didn't respond in time. And when the moment of voting came, we had no instruction what to do. And I decided, okay, we made that proposal. No one rejected our proposal. We will interpret this stand as approval of our proposition. And we didn't vote. And that costed me the enmity of the Greek side. And since that time, up to now, I have been under the fire of the Greek diplomacy. But I don't regret for that. In the Foreign Office, later on, we and a colleague of mine were accused to have passed on the side of the Turkey. And we responded to the minister and the others, you are defending the Greek position. So let the Turks and the Greeks solve themselves that problem. We can stay and watch. That was the final. Finally, the Greeks were strong in our affairs here. I think maybe they were more influential than the Turks. And I was asked. It was not the only reason. It was also the question of Kosovo. In 1981, we were not allowed to raise the question in its official speech. But I distributed some propaganda materials which made furious the Serbs in Belgrade. And again, I came under the fire of Serbian diplomacy. And so that was the life of Albania. With the Chinese, we were in good relations for a few years. Then our relationship turned soaring. And finally, I was in a position or an obligation to make condemning speeches for three most important states of the United Nations: the United States, Russia, the Soviet Union, and China, the three most powerful countries of today. You can imagine how trouble that cause for a young diplomat at that time. I still don't regret. It was done on purpose. It was done with the desire to contribute somehow. But it was, at least I was the only one in that atmosphere which was free to act without foreign instruction. I had instructions from my government, but never I had to follow the instructions of other countries. Today I would not, if I proposed to repeat that experience and go again, I say no, because I have experience of a free diplomat, which Albania now, as you know, has to follow not a block of countries. I am pleased with that. The day came that Albania is following the instruction of United States, not more anymore of Soviet Union, not anymore of China. But still, you have to calculate in your moves what your partner, what your ally is doing. I had no such problems. That's why I enjoyed very much. I enjoyed very much the stay, my stay in New York, because I had good contacts with Albanian population there, especially with the Albanians of Kosovo. And now it's not a secret because it's written. The main reason why I was sent home and dismissed from diplomacy was my stand with Kosovo. People here, our big bosses of diplomacy, they didn't like to work with Albanians from Kosovo. I met many of the communist leaders because it said I worked in foreign office. I prepared materials. Even I was a speechwriter for them from the foreign ministry. I have worked sometimes as a translator in meetings of our leaders with foreign leaders, because I translated from French. And at that time, there were no young people who knew French. I met twice Enver Hoxha, but in a meeting with Norodom Sihanouk of Cambodia, when he visited Albania. And I translated for the secretary to take notes, because Enver Hoxha spoke well French. He didn't need my translation. I was in more frequent contact with his deputy, the prime minister, Ahmed Shehu, and then from his other colleagues in the Politburo, when they had to contact foreign guests. So we were, in general, we were distant from Enver Hoxha, as it happens in all the countries. The functionaries of administration are not in close contact directly with the supreme leader. I respected him as the leader of Albania. I was not a fanatic. For me, he was not a genius or a Santa Saint, but we had to respect him, of course. We understood that since that time that something went wrong with our country. But you cannot imagine what Albania was. A very poor country, under a hard dictatorship, and we liked Albania like that. I was asked after the change of regime, why did not you defect and stay in the United States? I answered, I didn't want to become a traitor of my country. But you can betray the communist regime. I represented the country. I didn't represent only the regime. I didn't make Marxist propaganda there. I represented Albania. And defect from your position as a representative of a country is not acceptable. He stayed too long in his position. He caused a lot of damage. I cannot describe that, and then you are not interested in hearing me. It was necessary to change the regime, believe me. In 1990, together my wife and my daughter, we were involved in the movement to reverse that regime. My daughter participated in the student demonstrations. I worked in the other side. My wife was always helping me as a bodyguard practically. And finally, Albania changed. And Roger was dead at that time. It was a very interesting moment in the life of the Albanian nations, to change the regime, to change the atmosphere. Nobody knew how that can be done. Nobody knew how long it would take. But there were a general enthusiasm to change the situation. As I said, I worked with the Forum for Human Rights, which was for the first time organized in Albania. I did all the efforts to strengthen the Democratic Party, but I didn't become a member because I left the Communist Party and I didn't want to go to another party immediately. But I worked very hard, and I know the history of the events that changed the regime, that know the history of how the Democratic Party came to power and how the Democratic Party betrayed the democracy. So, to finish with the past that was imposed on the Albanian people. Communism was imposed to the Albanian people. There were no conditions for communism to be born here in Albania. Albania was an isolated, totally isolated country. But I feel it wrong and consider it wrong to say that Albania was only a self-isolated country. In fact, first Albania was an isolated country. The Western power, democratic power, if they wanted, they could save Albania from communism very easily. How easily they saved Greece. Communist Party in Greece, which was much stronger than in Albania. The Greeks are more fanatic to ideas than Albanians are. And they saved Greece from a communist power. They didn't save Albania because there was some kind of arrangements between the big powers that Albania should be the backyard of communist zone of the influence. And for decades, we remained in that. Then we were put in a very difficult situation after Soviet Union and Yugoslavia got together, and then it was a good choice to join China against the Soviet brand of Marxism. It was a very bad choice for Albanian leaders to quarrel with China, because China today is a strong country. No friendship lasts forever. Maybe only 2 or 3, as I know, are lasting long. The friendship of Israel with the United States, friendship of Serbia with Russia and France. Otherwise, all friendships has a quick end. Albania has been in a very special position. We have had intensive contacts with big powers. We were part of the Ottoman Empire, and my opinion is we profited a lot from that, although many Albanians think otherwise. Then we had some closer contacts with Italy, which were detrimental to us. At the beginning, we had good relations with Yugoslavia. Albania risked to become a part of Yugoslavia, up to the quarrel of Stalin and Tito. The quarrel of Stalin and Tito saves Albania from being included in Yugoslavia as the Seventh Republic. So that's why we cherished the friendship with the Soviet Union at the time, up to 1965, 56, when Khrushchev overthrew the party line of the Stalin party line. And then we had to make our choice to go closer to China. But as you see, with all these big powers compared to Albanians, we had good contacts. Finally, we were left for nothing. And I am convinced now, after many analyses, that this has not been a spontaneous process. Our neighbors always had to work to isolate Albanians from friendship with big powers. Greeks and Serbs have always been our enemies in that sense. They want Albania to be isolated or self-isolated. And that's why we are in a bad position even now. You won't believe me, but I tell since the beginning that what is called Open Balkans is a plot against Albanians. So I think those who want to understand Albania should not be very much impressed. Those who want to understand Albania in a positive way must take into account how the history of Albania was developed, how the events in Albania are developing. And Albania is passing now a very, very tough time, in any sense. It's repeating, I mentioned on purpose how Albania risks to become the seventh republic of Yugoslavia. The Open Balkans is the same plan to include Albania in a conglomerate of states, Slavic states, Orthodox states, to replace Yugoslavia with another Yugoslavia. I mentioned to you, I showed you the small card of the lady from Bosnia. Once I asked her a question. Do you think the contradiction that destroyed Yugoslavia disappeared? All the problems were solved. I said, I don't know, what your opinion? My opinion is nothing disappeared. All the contradictions, all the problems that led to the destruction of Yugoslavia are still alive and working. Instead of one Yugoslavia, we are now having 6 other Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia is Serbia itself. Worse Yugoslavia is Bosnia, Macedonia, Albanians, lands. So you have so many new Yugoslavias. That's why this project of Open Balkans was put to place. And it was not done by the Serbs only. Who presented first the project? Madame Merkel. Why? To please Russia. Why Western Europe didn't react? To please Russia. Why United States during Trump's time was ready to go along with that project. So the problems remain. If you may ask me why the situation of Albanians, because I would respond that because the legacy of Ottoman Empire is not yet over.
Oh.
You don't believe that?
I believe.
Because there are national questions in the Balkans that are not solved. Ottoman Empire was destroyed because of the impetus of the national questions. If there is a national question which is not solved in Balkans, then you not can say that the history of Ottoman Empire is closed in the Balkans. Albanians are divided in 6 different states. You mean? By the end of the Ottoman Empire, we were divided among 4 vilayets. But between vilayet and a state, independent state, there is a difference. A vilayet is a part of a multinational state, an empire. A national state is not the same thing. So, look what happened. Our bad luck was the Berlin Congress. Ottoman Empire was feeble, was not in a position to defend its territories. And Albanians were not recognized as a nation. All the Balkan countries, all the nations of the Balkans were recognized, Albanians not. Because they are Turks or that. Really, we were a distinct millet, according to the principle of the Ottoman Empire, to divide its inhabitants according to the religious pertinence. But during the Berlin Congress, Albanians were in a very in the danger. And it was a smart movement of the Albanian leadership at the time, elite, to oppose that. And of course, we have to recognize the merit of the Sultan in helping secretly that trend. But finally, Albanians were not united in the same state. When the Supreme Court decided in 1912 to move to form a unique vilayet, Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro immediately declared war on the Ottoman Empire. And we were divided. That's why I think the legacy of destruction of Ottoman Empire is not yet over as long as the Albanian nation is divided. This is the crucial problem in the Balkans. So if you have Bosnia, if you have Albanians in that position, if you have Macedonia, what is Macedonia? An invented state. They are Bulgarians, practically, of Slavic. Without the Albanians, cannot they form a viable state? No. Now we have some satisfaction. We were rewarded in Kosovo. And that thanks to the United States. And especially thanks to 2 people, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. One made possible liberation of Kosovo, the other one decided to proclaim Kosovo independent states. That is our biggest win during all our bad history. How I decided very easily. I was in a position, even before, with many positions of the government. As I said to you, I knew the leaders of the Albanian states. I appreciate certain of them. I don't like certain others. So I waited for the moment. It's not a revenge because I was ousted from the diplomacy, because I didn't want to continue the diplomacy anymore. But the time came when any intellectual, anyone Albanian who knew the practice of the Albanian state had to take a stand. And I am very sorry that I was not followed by other colleagues we were only 4 lawyers in the first parliament, pluralistic parliament. Only 4 lawyers. Who was the only diplomat from the communist regime that switched to the opposition. Because it was time to decide. And you know a secret, the young lady that came to meet you, she was a student at that time. And she influenced me to not to be late in joining the student movement. Without asking me, she went to the hunger strike of the students. And I wanted to organize the people there. So it was the family tradition, it was family ties, it was the discussion we had before, and it depended how open-minded you are. People who are open-minded cannot accept anything. I had the chance. I was not under familiar pressure ideologically. I said, okay, we send you to school, you have to learn, you have to become someone. We are almost illiterate, although my father had some schooling. Even he could read Yasin with Arabic signs. But otherwise, other people were illiterate. My mother didn't know to write and to read. My grandmother too. So we had to search for some new thing. And also I had the experience of the Soviet Union. What went wrong there? I had experience with America. I didn't dislike too much Soviet Union. I didn't like too much America. I had experience with Westerners because I met and accompanied many young people from France, from England, who wanted to visit many Marxist-Leninist group, except for Turkey. With Turks, I didn't have any contact because I didn't know Turkish. So that's why I decided it's time to go to a big change. And initially, we made progress. Although later on everything went wrong. You may have heard the word transition in Albania. The period of transition is slightly too long. The period of transition in Albania was very short. It was 5 days, only 5 years, since the Democratic Party became a ruling party, up to the moment that the Democratic Party was overthrown by a military coup organized by foreigners, Fos and France. Fos and France were involved in Albania to destroy a new regime instead of helping. And if we are in a bad position today, believe me, it's not only because the Albanians are stupid, because they don't want order, but because there are many, many interventions in Albania's affair. Since the day that Albania was proclaimed as a sovereign state in 1912, never France and Fos stopped on intervening in Albania. And today, the intervention is terrible. It's much worse than in Bosnia. Because in Bosnia, the Croats have their state on the other side of it. The Serbs have their own state. There are only the Muslims. Maybe they don't know what to do. But the others Bosnia, for me, is not a state. It's a divided state up to the moment when some decision will be taken. They divided Bosnia when they allowed ethnic cleansing. They created the situation. Those diplomats from East and West, who decided to clean up certain regions from the Bosnians, certain regions from the Croats, certain regions from the Serbs. Then why force them to live together? It's a normal question. Why force the Albanians in Macedonia to be citizens of a Macedonian national state? It doesn't make sense. That's why we have problems today. So we try to spread among the Albanians the idea that we have to revise our opinions about the time of Ottoman Empire. Albanians became Muslims much later than the others. Why? When they sensed the danger. They sensed the danger from being divided between Orthodox states. And then they, okay, let's go. The Sultan entourage made many mistakes at that time. It was hard for them maybe to foresee all the dangers. But the interest of the Turkish nations of today, it has been that even at that time, Albanians become the stronghold of friendship, which we are pleased when relations advance. And we are displeased, of course, when others interfere to put in difficulty the leaders who try to do something. So I don't know what you have heard about developments in Albania, but here we can expect for events of terrible impact. You mentioned, for instance, Maxi, he didn't respond. What do you know about him?
Not so much.
Do you know that he is the son of a Greek officer who fought against Ataturk? It's easy for me to respond. I thank very much the Turkish part because they never were angry at the miscalculation and mistakes of Albania. And even Enver Hoxha was not against relationship between Albania and Turkey. But Turkey was part of Balkan Pact, a hostile position to the Warsaw Pact. We were in the Warsaw Pact. Turkey was a Cold War warrior for the West at that time. So we couldn't go further. Albania was very, very strict in ideological positions. But any move to bring Turkey and Albania closer in the field of state-to-state relations was accepted with pleasure here in Albania. I remember when the first Turkish delegation of parliamentary delegation came to Albania, presided by the president of the parliament, Bozbeyli. We were just a happiness for us at that time. I know that another fact, when we soared with our relationship with China, I was ambassador to the UN, and my colleague, who had become foreign minister of Turkey, Ilter Turkmen. And they later met our minister. And he said, you now may be in trouble. You don't have anyone else to help you. Turkey is ready to help, even in the military field. Weapons. Oh, thanks. It was a good gesture. And then later on, the relations were stable. But neither part could go too far, because both sides had obligations within their blocks of friendship. Turkey was a member of the NATO. Albania was up to 68 member of Warsaw Pact. So we had to keep a certain distance. But enmity there has never been seen. I have publicly declared that in following my experience, I think that there is only one nation that I trust to be friendly to Albania. This is Turkish nation. Many people ask me, why are you so sure? Because there are no any contests between Albanians and Turks. With all other countries, we have religious contests, political, ideological. With Turkey, no. In Turkey, can you go and say, yeah, I'm an Arnaut? Okay, they are pleased to hear that, but not in other countries. I think the relations are not at the level we would like. I am not blaming anyone. I have had occasion to have some change of views, even with Turkish officials. I met Erbakan. I met Erdogan when they were prohibited to make political activity, because I was invited to the Fazilet's Party Congress, to another party congress in Turkey. So Turkey and Albania have interest to be close to each other. Many Albanians appreciate the stand of Turkey during events of 1997, when Albania practically was destroyed. Tansu Çiller and her government took a very strong stand that told the Greeks, stop. And I have, for instance, a book here. Paradise Lost, written by an author of Western. Several years ago, I showed that book on TV, because we had a polemics with the Greeks. This is the destruction of Islamic city of tolerance, Smyrna, or say Izmir. And I told the Greeks, read that book. What have you done by invading Anatolia in 1921-23? You lost the paradise. Said. Don't try foolish moves against Albanians. Don't forget Smyrna. And I will tell all the time. That's why I mentioned that we had a prime minister of democracy, which has been is the son of a Greek officer who fought against the Turks until the Battle of Sankaya. So you don't. Maybe you have lost something of not meeting him. Try again. I'm speaking. Everything I'm saying to you, I have written. I don't hide anything. I had just general conversation. For instance, during the days of the Congress, people who managed the Yabancı Misafir, as we were at that time, said, okay, Mr. Erbakan is ready to receive some delegates, foreign delegates. And they took us to a villa in the outskirts of Ankara. There were people from Macedonia, Albanians from Macedonia. There were people from Muslim brothers from Arab countries, and so on. And he explained why they followed the political line of Islamic socialism. He explained why he and the party didn't resist against the coup d'etat that overthrew them. He assured us that party membership asked to resist, to have a clash with the army. And we decided no, because from that Turkey will be weakened. And decided, okay, we will go to the opposition and not give too much trouble. That didn't happen during the coup d'etat recently. And I explained that. I said that, explained that in a television program in Albania. The conscience of the Greek people changed. They couldn't accept all the time, in my opinion, to have repeated overthrow the government by force, by the army. And when Erdogan asked the people to resist, incidentally, they resisted. So, for me, I said on TV, that means the conscience and the perceptions of the Greek people have changed. It's not the same as before. When I met Erdogan in his office in Üsküdar, a friend of mine, a Turk friend of mine, who took care of me, they sent me to the hospital at the time to have a surgery. He was a friend of Erdogan from the old times. But he asked, how is your impression about Congress, how they feel? No political. So for us, it's important that Turkish people knows better Albanian people, and Albanian people know better Turk. Here in Albania we have problems. I'm telling you the truth, because there are differences for political reasons, for regional reasons, for religious reasons. So we have been waging a fight for 30 years against certain mentalities here in Albania. And we have not won the battle. We don't know what happened. For me, I told my Turkish friends, for me, it's important that Turkey works with any government we have in Albania. State-to-state relations will go on. I didn't like Nano, Prime Minister, and he had good relationship with Turks. I don't like the president, the Prime Minister, today's Prime Minister. But I say, okay, I appreciate that Turkey has good relations and influences for some progress. I supported very strongly Berisha, but I don't like when he attacks Erdogan. I have written an article about asymmetric strategy of the Albanians. And I say, any strategic partnership for the Albanians is asymmetric, because we don't have the potential, economic, political, or military, to be equal partners with anyone. So we have to take that into account. The best partnership, strategic partnership for Albanians is Albania-Turkey, because of the reasons I explained. In the European scale, we hoped to have the same thing with Germany. It didn't work. In the global scale, United States. United States, whatever they do, we cannot say no, because they are who they are. And we are in debt to the United States because they saved half of our nation in the most dangerous moments in Kosovo. They have that right to impose some time. But we have the right also to say, please, don't do that, our friends. It's too harsh to act that way. For instance, to force us to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But otherwise, we cannot not say no. We don't have reason to say no to Turkey. We don't have also the obligation to say that everything that Turkey does, it's okay for us. I have explained even in Turkey these ideas. My general impression is that Turkey always has had a very smart diplomacy. Let others say what they want. They are moderate in judgment, a little bit slow in taking conclusions for the situations, because the time passes quickly. Now, I don't have to say how to, it seems that everything is okay between Albania and Turkey, and it will be okay. I appreciate the role Turkey plays in this turbulent war, but it doesn't mean that they will be successful anytime, all the time. With the Greeks, there will never friendship. Between Albanians and Serbs will be never friendship. I don't have a clear picture what the policy of Turkey is about open Balkans. But I will tell any friend or during any contact with the Turks that open Balkans is to destroy Albanian identity. Maybe Turkey is not very much against open Balkans, but as an Albanian, as I have the right and an obligation to convey friendly that open Balkans is the destruction of the Albanian identity in the Balkans. I still believe the majority of Albanians are of that opinion. We are Albanians, we have to be together. I don't consider that as another alternative to that. This is a historical amanet. It's a historical imperative. It's a national imperative. People who are of the same stuff have the obligation to be together if they want to prosper. Otherwise, why should they be of the same nation? You can meet people who are against these ideas. But I assure you, we have made a big progress in propagating these opinions. And Albania will come sooner or later, the crushing majority to that opinion. There is no other way. Everything. I explained that in the State Department. and NATO. Because I have been there during democracy years, in the State Department, where they said we were 12 people from Albania and Kosovo, intellectuals, politicians, former communists and non-communists. And they told us, we won't allow Serbia to trample underfoot the human rights in Kosovo. And I thanks, but this is not enough. The problem cannot be solved in that way, just to defend human rights in Kosovo. Milosevic is violating human rights in Belgrade, not in Kosovo. In Kosovo is violating the national rights, and there is a difference. Kosovo is the last case of decolonization in Europe. They closed. And Mr. Hill was there when we had a conversation. A year later, in 1992, I was heading a group of 12 Albanian people to visit NATO headquarters. In the first day, the generals explained us the moves. We put the question, why are you not intervening in Bosnia? November 1992. I said, okay, we cannot. I said, why? We are not allowed. We don't have permission. Who can give you permission? I said, United Nations. Have you asked? No. It's not our duty to ask. It's the political committee that asks. You can go there and ask them. Okay, we'll do that. But you, one day, do you have other reasons? Yes. Serbs are very skillful in waging guerrilla wars. But you have to do that one day or not. The situation cannot. They did. They intervened. When we went to the political committee of NATO in Brussels, the last question asked to me was, what is the best solution of Kosovo problem? It was unexpected. No one was prepared for that. And I said, okay, would you like me to make a statement of the type one can make at the UN? I can do that. Or what you me to speak with Albanian voice? So, you want to hear the Albanian voice. It's a closed meeting. Then it's easy for me. The best solution for solving the Kosovo problem is to unite Kosovo with Albania. No one expected. I said, I give you reasons why. First, you save a nation, a people from genocide. The Serbs are prepared for genocide. Second, you correct the mistakes done in the past. The London Conference on 13. Third, you help of creating a viable state. Albania is not a viable state. Decades has proven that without Kosovo. You complete the exercise of the principle of self-determination of nations. And finally, you solve your main duty. You create a factor of peace and stability in the Balkans. For all these reasons, I cannot find any better solution. I know the Serbs don't want to hear that. You are not prepared to understand us right now. And we don't have the force to impose such a solution. If we have the force, the problem is solved. We have the right to go. But we don't have the force. then up to the moment that the conditions are met for such a solution, we will ask to help for a temporal solution, Kosovo an independent state. I have said it before, people have said it not. And no one was moving. Otherwise, I don't know what other solution, because everything else has been tried and failed. Assimilation failed. Capitulation, full capitulation of Albania failed. I don't know what answer to give. There were no discussion about it. And if I have done during my political career something good, I consider all those two interventions, State Department and Political Committee of NATO. The major part of the problems have been solved in that way up to now. That's why it makes me confident that the unification of Albanians, all Albanians, is not only a just solution, but it is a necessary solution for the peace in Balkans. Up to that moment, there are no tranquil and calm Balkans. I'm sorry to say that to Muslim of Bosnia, but they too should understand that I cannot say don't do what you are doing. It is in his interest. And maybe he's right. I don't know. But it's not for me. For Albanians, yes. Albania, as I said, is a legacy, a problem unsolved since the destruction of Ottoman Empire. Europe has to solve the problem before thinking of a new Yugoslavia, which is Greater Serbia. That's why I have criticized since the beginning the Merkel project. I don't agree, I don't say publicly, but I don't agree with all the Albanians. Okay, the Merkel project is good, Milosevic is bad. Milosevic-Rama project is Merkel project. I appreciate very much the friendship between Turks and Albania. Not because I have some nostalgia for the empire. In Istanbul, in a conference, I have declared, don't expect me to say, Ottoman Empire, please come back. Because I know that this is something of past. But friendship remains. There are so many Turks of Albanian origin. So the other Turks have to respect the feeling of those their countrymen now. Albanians and Turks only can win from their good relations. Turkey will never find a more loyal or more stable in this internal senses in the friend in the Balkans than a part of Albanians. The others will never be such sympathetic to Turkey. Turkey has a role to play now. And even we don't want a friendship with Turkey, Turkey has the obligation to take care, because it's part of the space of its activity. If Turkey wants to continue to maintain its regional great power role. Today there is somewhere a meeting of states of Turkish stock. Albanians are not there because at least everybody understands that Albanians are not Turks. But that doesn't mean that we are not interested in reinforcement of such trends. We believe that Turkey will not change. The problem for us is to change the Albanians, especially part of our elite and part of organizations that do the work of others. As I let's hope it goes like we would like.